What's going on, everyone? It's Brain, which code you find jewelry, your personal jeweler. I make a lot of videos about new chains and how to wear them, how to stack them. But in this video, I want to talk about the current chain or bracelet around your wrist and what to look out for to prevent loss or further damage. For based off my knowledge, things to look out for. With that being said, let's get started. Most of the time, if there's going to be an issue, it's going to be around the clasp. Remember, the lobster clasp can have an issue. A box lock can have an issue. It's about just staying on top of it, watching it. This is why this video is important for me to make, for you guys to watch, to kind of check over things. And I'm going to focus on the lobster clasp in this video. I'll make more videos about different things that can happen. And if you want to just briefly check your chain, like I said, most issues are at the clasp. We have a link chain. Check the solder in between those links. Just make sure everything is good. If you have a rope chain, just run your fingers down your rope chain. Make sure there's no breaks in those little ropes. Same thing with rounded chains like Franco's, but most of the time, the issue will be at the clasp. I'm gonna use my flat curve because this has been worn daily for 13 plus years around my neck, taking off just maybe when I do these videos. That's about it. I wear this chain all the time, have been for 13 plus years, and I'm super proud of that. So I want to show you guys a real example. I'm not going to get a brand new chain and talk about a used chain. I'm using my chain that has been used for years and years and years. Love this chain. So the first thing I got to check is the end caps. Now, the solder sometimes may turn a dark color. A lot of people freak out, but it's the solder going bad on that. So I'm checking my end caps. And first of all, I want to make sure it's still stuck. It's a good solder and those clasps are nice and secure. So you take your chain and you kind of just, you don't have to try to like pull it apart. That's just opposite what you want to do, but just make sure it feels like a good fit, that it is still doing its job there. The solder and the end caps, because you don't want that failing. For my chain, it is strong as when I first got it brand new. And then the next part, you want to make sure the clasp works, has a good spring in it. My 5.5 flat curve, the spring is a little dull, to be honest. It's not like a brand new spring action, but I rarely take it on and off, so I'm not worried about it too much. I just leave it as is. Now, the other thing you want to talk about, or if I want to talk about and show you guys, is the separation between the lobster clasp itself. Now, this can happen over time with a heavy chain or any chain, or if you get pulled on. A lot of people, they get pulled on their chain or it gets caught in a sweater or whatever, they're playing or wrestling and you feel that tug. Everyone's felt that tug on their chain like, oh my gosh, should I lose it? You want to look at the clasp because sometimes where the hook comes around and the little part that hinges can get separated. That is the biggest issue. A lot of people just look for, oh, is my lobster clasp busted? But you have to check that separation, because what happens is if the chain slides around, it could go through that little separation and just fall off. So that is the biggest thing to look at. And how I test my chains is I just get the other end of the clasp and wiggle it and make sure it cannot fit through that little slit there. There's not too much separation. Sometimes you might have a little separation, that's normal, but you don't want to be able to have that just slide off. I'll make a video on how to fix that and watch that more closely, but my biggest tip in this video is checking that little separation there. You don't want too much because that chain, for just movement, whatever, may slide right off. Now that I'm on a separation tangent, let's go further. If you have a pendant like I do myself, I have a 3mm 18 karat Jacoji link with my yellow diamond cross, daily wear, never take it off. Now, I'm not worried about these little Jacoji links like busting and getting bent out of shape. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm concerned about that lobster clasp separation like I just mentioned. If this thing becomes too heavy over time, I think it's just right, but if it pulls and pulls and pulls and I mess with it, that separation might get wider and wider and wider, and one day it'll just fall right off. The clasp didn't fail at all. It's just the weight and gravity, which you can't prevent. It's just over time just pulling down on that. So you have to be careful and watch for that. I'm not saying every day just obsess about it, but that is the one thing to look at, especially if you're wearing with heavier style pendants. Check that separation, make sure it's good. The last thing I want to talk about is the jump ring. A lot of lobster clasps have the jump ring. and so many people get upset if their jump ring is not soldered. The crazy thing is my 5.5 flat curve jump ring that I've had for 13 years and it's just been to hell and back with me is not soldered, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I mean, to me, I think it should be soldered, but for my personal chain, then this is the most prized possession, physical thing that I own is this, and it will always be this chain. I love this chain so much. It is just everything to me, and to me, I don't worry about it because it's held up for 13 years. Knock on wood there, but to me, it's not. But I would make sure, same thing with that separation, the same issue could happen. If you don't have a soldered jump ring, just make sure that jump ring is good. Even if your jump ring is soldered, make sure it is just looks strong. It's not like an oval and looks very thin in some areas. That's what you want to inspect. Those point of contact areas, you want to make sure they're good because they're easy fixes. Losing a chain and coming to grips, and a lot of people, we have sentimental attachments to our jewelry. A lot of our things, especially jewelry, that is what excites me about gold jewelry. It's meant to last forever. It's meant to go on this journey with you. If you lose it, it's hard to come to grips with. So preventing little jump rings and little hooks that need to be closed a little tighter, easy fixes that would take like 5 minutes for a jeweler to do. You want to kind of take care of those issues because, like I said, they're easy. So those are the main things with lobster clasp. Doesn't matter what style lobster clasp, they all work the same, just kind of look differently. Those are what you want to look for. The end caps, start with the end caps and then work your way in and make sure everything is good. You go on Google and kind of compare pictures on a new chain or whatever, but you guys have common sense. You know if there's an issue or if you don't feel comfortable with it, it's easy to get it taken care of, trust me, and I recommend you doing so. I recommend every so often when you clean your jewelry or you take it off or whatever, just take a look at it and make sure those end caps, that clasp, looks good and is functioning properly. It'll be worth it in the long run. Thank you guys for watching. Like I said, I'm gonna make more videos. We'll talk about box locks. We'll talk about all the different stuff, different chains, and what to look for to help from preventing loss or further damage. That's it for today's video. I hope this helps. We'll see you on the next jewelry video.